Hello, and welcome to A Healthy Mind. I'm Dr. Cicelina Grosser-Ledbetter, Director of Counseling and Student Development at the University of the District of Columbia, and your host. On today's edition, we will explore a holistic view of stress from the perspective of mind, body, and spirit. My guest is Dr. Deborah L. Davis. Dr. Davis is a licensed psychologist with 37 years of experience working with individual adults, couples, and group therapy. She considers the whole person and believes in the connections between mind, body, and spirit, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, the past and the present. Her specialty areas include relationship difficulties, anxiety, self-esteem issues, career and work concerns, grief and loss, stress management, adult and children from distressed families, and cultural adjustment. Welcome, Dr. Davis. What don't you do? I think you do it.
I think I do a little bit of everything.
I think you do a little bit of everything.
Thanks.
So talk to us a little bit about that, everything that you do related to stress. Stress is everywhere. It's in the media. We're all stressed out about something. So talk about your background with stress and how you kind of got to where you are.
Well, it's been a little bit of a long journey, and I've been all over the place working with children, adolescents, adults, anywhere from working with outpatient alcoholism treatment programs, working with child guidance centers, working 20 years in college counseling environments. So I've basically spanned the age range. I've had a private practice for the past 22 years, and I've seen older adults ranging from young adulthood to retirement age in that practice. And pretty much I've seen stress express itself in a lot of different ways. Yeah. We know that we have physical manifestations of stress. Our body reacts when we're stressed. We might experience things like headaches, muscle tension, pain.
Is that what people say? How do people come to you? I'm feeling stressed, or is it a breakdown somewhere that causes them to come to you?
Actually, it's usually some type of difficulty either in their relationships with others, family situations, workplace, feelings of anxiety and depression. Bring a lot of people in. That is certainly exacerbated by stress. Sometimes people are struggling with managing multiple roles, wife, mother, worker, facing regular life stage changes, going through transitions with jobs, getting married, getting divorced.
And some of that is normal, right? So we're supposed to experience stress on some level.
Yes,
right?
Actually, stress is what we do to adapt to change in our environment.
Right.
We tend to think of stress in the negative term, distress. We think of distress. There's also something called eustress, which is the positive stress that occurs when things that are good happen to us. We buy a new house, we have a new job, we have a promotion. These things get us to move. We adapt to change. And we have a physiological response to stress. We walk out the house in the morning. We might experience noise pollution. We're dealing with air pollution, pollen in the air. So there are environmental things that stress us. A lot of things are related to social stress, our relationships with our family, our relationships in the workplace, money, financial issues, how we deal with expectations that other people have of us.
Right. And then does your body respond the same to negative stress and the eustress?
Well,
so like physiologically?
You have a physiological response. So the basic one is fight or flight. Okay. You know, our primitive man had to deal with saber-toothed tigers coming after him. So danger signals, our brain, the cerebral cortex, our thinking part of our brain sends a signal that activates our adrenal gland that gets us secreting certain chemicals in our body like epinephrine and norepinephrine and adrenaline.
But they affect us differently.
Affects us differently, and what mediates how it affects us, what manages all that is how we think about it. If we have a perception of threat or danger. So the same thing people could have a different reaction to. So for you, you know, getting a new job might be a wonderful thing, something you've been waiting for, you're totally excited about it. You have certain things like butterflies in your stomach maybe. There's a certain amount of anxiety maybe with the unknown, but it's a good thing. But for another person, it might mean, oh my gosh, I don't think I can measure up. I don't think I can do it. So how we think about the what expectation we attach, what meaning we attach to the change, and whether we think we have the resources to deal with it has something to do with whether it affects us negatively or positively.
And so you see adults and children.
Actually, I see adult children from families of distress. So
You
I
see
see
ad-
the
you see
grown-ups.
adults.
I see adults mainly now. I have worked with children in the past. I have worked with adolescents, but now my practice is limited to adults. But we have many people who haven't worked through issues from their past. So my specialty area, I work with a broad range of problems. My specialty area is working with adult children, meaning people who grew up in families where there were issues of substance abuse or mental illness. We find often in those kind of situations, children don't get what they need. There are other things going on in the family in terms of the family dynamic. And so people grow up with ideas about themselves and how they relate to people in the world and expectations of how people will treat them that don't fit the way they adapted to a difficult situation in the home. They carry those patterns into their current relationships and they don't work well.
Right.
Often those result in issues with control, issues with responsibility, thinking you're responsible for everybody's happiness, everybody's feelings. Everything has to do with you.
Right.
Feeling a lot of guilt, not paying attention to your own personal needs. What do you need to be happy? What preferences do you have about things? Often people in those situations have been adjusting, trying to not make waves, trying to fly under the radar.
Trying to figure it out?
Trying to figure it out, but also trying to prevent chaos and confusion where situations might have not really had anything to do with them, but they took it on as their responsibility for things happening around them, say in a chaotic family where there was mental illness or an alcoholic parent.
And so are they
example.
trying to recreate their home?
They're not trying to recreate their home, but they're not necessarily aware of what healthy functioning looks like, of what healthy expectations are, what it's okay. The patterns get embedded, and then they try to look around and scan and see what other people are doing to try to figure out what normal is. They know that what they experienced wasn't, except they were told that it was sometimes because people were in denial about the real situation. So they start scanning and they're trying to figure out, but they're not quite sure. So often they look very successful, but on the inside they're not feeling good. They're not feeling good about themselves, even though they're very accomplished, they have low self-esteem, they may feel very unsure, not trust their judgment about things, not trust their decision-making skills, and they end up kind of torturing themselves internally and having a whole lot of negative self-talk going on in their head about who they are.
And you talk about mind, body, spirit, and make the distinction for me or pull them together and talk about what does that mean?
Okay.
Because we think stress.
And we think stress. And so we know stress can it can show itself as physical symptoms, stomach problems, muscle tension. This is the bodily expression of stress. It can get so bad that, you can actually think yourself into your heart beating faster and feeling like you're about to have a heart attack. We see a lot of people show up in the emergency room who are really just having anxiety, who have symptoms that look like they might be having a heart attack. So your mind, the way you think about things, the things you tell yourself, has something to do with how you react to things that are going on around you. You have the physical sensations. Often you have muscle tension, tingling feelings. You might get clammy hands, cold hands. These are physiological responses that happen in response to some of the things that you're thinking. So your thoughts, have some.
They're very powerful.
They're extremely powerful. And the power of positive thinking is also very powerful.
Right.
So what you tell yourself, you have an internal dialogue going on a lot of the time during the day. People often do that very automatically. They're not even aware. Oh, I'm so stupid. The things that you tell yourself.
And your brain can hear you.
And your brain hears you, and you respond accordingly, and you behave accordingly.
That's right.
And the biggest things, I tell my clients often, to eliminate the word can't and try from your vocabulary. Because if you're saying you can't do something, you're not even going to try because it's a statement of capability. You've already decided you're incapable. Why bother? If you say you're going to try to do something, well, that has some doubt to it. Either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it.
That's right.
So I'll try. Well, that's a half-hearted
It forces commitment. Isn't that like an escape route, a permanent escape route?
I'll try. Well, if you're trying, you probably aren't going to do it.
That's right.
Like, try to pick that book up.
Right.
Either you're going to do it or you're not. So, the things that we tell ourselves. I think, too, we lose touch with our spirit. And people understand that very differently. Some people hook spirituality with religion. I think spirituality and religion are very different. Spirituality is our essence, our soul. What's in our soul? What's in our heart? We often lose touch with our own self. What is it that we really enjoy? What is it that we really like? Often we have ideas about why we can't do those things, and so we don't even dream. We have no dream. We have no vision.
No dreams.
We have no hope about where we're going. We might, we don't even stop to take the time. And often that has to do with the time press on us. People pulling on us from lots of different directions.
And
our elderly parents, our
Yes.
children,
Yes.
our bosses,
Yes.
our supervisors, our managers, people all around us having an expectation for us to do things, and there being limited amount of hours in the day.
And we want to give them a piece, right?
We want to
It's
give
kind
them
of
a
like
piece.
25/8, right?
And sometimes we don't want to give them a piece, but we think we're supposed to.
We think
and
we're
so
supposed to.
we extend.
And I think that's worse.
And we overextend. We don't know how to say no. We feel like we're supposed to say yes to everyone.
Right. And is there a gender difference there? Do you think women are more likely or men are more likely? Because they've got their set of issues too.
You know, I think the way we're socialized in terms of our gender roles
Yeah.
have something to do with it.
Right.
You know, you often have women who, you know, your role as a wife, as a mother. We have, you know, couples who share responsibilities.
That's
But
right.
some people really believe that this is what a wife does.
Right.
This is what a husband does.
Right.
Husbands don't wash dishes.
Right.
Husbands don't cook.
Right.
We have.
Don't say that in my house.
We have more progressive people who
Please.
think that we share.
right.
You know,
Right.
we work in our areas of expertise. So if you're a better financial manager, then you handle the money.
That's
you know,
right.
some things we'll do together. So it really just depends, and often it's what we're taught, what we see, what we learned from our family of origin, what was modeled for us. What we were told about who we're supposed to be as women or who we're supposed to be as men.
Which then has to be recreated.
That's right.
Perhaps.
Societal expectations. And sometimes it doesn't quite work for us. And we think that somehow we're supposed to do that even though it doesn't work for us versus charting our own path and creating our own
And
our
then the
way of
stress
being.
comes in when you fail to do that. Is it right? The stress comes in when you fail to chart your own path and you're trying to fit in
When you
to
give-
whatever the path is that was laid out for you.
When you give yourself messages that are negative about your ability to measure up or not, to do what people expect you to do or not, if you have an idea that people are going to want things from me and I can't please everybody all the time, you're going to have a very different reaction when people are disappointed in you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have a stress story.
Okay.
I felt stress.
Okay.
And so I thought that, you know, I'm pretty type B, I'm pretty laid back, and I thought that I had this thing. I was working on my master's thesis. And I had done all the data collection. I had boyfriends and girlfriends help me with the collection of data and hadn't felt any stress. And I was like, okay, I kind of got this. I had gotten back really negative feedback and positive feedback, can take criticism pretty well, right? And then about a week before I was about to defend, my advisor wrote in all purple, really bright purple on my paper and completely marked it up. And I thought, I'm having a meltdown. This must be what stress feels like. And up until that point, I really had not felt like that. I felt warm. I had to pause. I started crying and I thought, is this stress? Because I am Miss Easygoing, but I completely lost it. So I don't know, am I describing a breakdown or was that stress? Because I felt like, my goodness.
I think that was a stress response. You know,
Okay.
people talk about having a nervous
Oh,
breakdown.
my
They're really
gosh.
maybe overwhelmed with their emotions.
I could
and
not
their
believe
feelings.
it. I'm like, this is my last draft.
And what did that mean to you?
So I was afraid I was going to miss my defense date because my mom was coming in town and everybody was prepared. It was right before graduation and I lost 10 pounds in between that day and the day I defended. And I didn't realize until I saw the pictures and I thought, wow, you really were going through. Had no idea. So it meant, oh my gosh, you're a failure. You can't do this.
So you took
Are you
this-
really going to do this?
This one task just canceled out all of your
Everything.
accomplishments in your whole life.
That's right.
And that's a pattern of thinking that some people walk around with on a
Right,
daily basis.
right.
They focus, they magnify, they make the thing larger than life. It cancels out all the positive things that they ever did. So
right.
there are a whole series of ways that we can have distorted thinking about things. We
Right.
focus on the little thing that didn't go well and we ignore all the good things that happened.
Right,
We have
right.
all or none thinking. It's either this
That's
or
right.
it's that. It's either extreme. There's no
Yeah.
gray area. There's nothing in the middle.
This purple writing, hey, it's
The purple writing was there, but you just had to take that purple writing and go through each thing, each point at a time,
Yes.
and address it, and you got it done. Now,
got it
you said you didn't eat, you lost 10 pounds. Sometimes when people are stressed, their digestive system shuts down, and the chemical process that happens with us can slow our digestion process, and so some people can lose their appetite. Some people get chronic diarrhea, so it affects our digestive system as well.
Or the opposite.
Or the opposite. They overeat. They just want to eat they soothe themselves with food for comfort.
I'm thinking, how can I recreate that without the stress? How can I lose the
Healthy diet,
right,
exercise,
I know.
which gets us back to the physical, the mind, the body. We have to take good care of
Right,
ourselves. We
right.
take for granted our bodies often until we have a
do.
problem. And we think, oh, we're young, we can do whatever.
Right,
When we get
right.
older, we become a little more conscious
Right,
of that. But we
right.
have one body, and we can use it up, and we can
Yeah.
abuse it, and we tend to do that. And we do that sometimes accidentally, by not paying attention to the things we put into our system.
So what are some of the practices then? What are some of the practices that we can do that force us to pause? And whether they're mind or spirit exercises or physical exercises, what can we do to mitigate some of the stress in our everyday lives?
Well, first thing is to pause. You know, we get caught up and we have this time press and we're rushing around. Be sure to carve out time for yourself, time to decompress. I call it decompression time. Think about what you enjoy doing. It might be listening to music. It might be taking a warm bath. It might be reading a book. It might be just having quiet time. Time when you tell your children, this is mommy's time. I'm going in the room for half an hour. I'll be back. Don't interrupt unless it's an emergency.
Forget about it.
And just, well, see, forget about it.
No, I know.
You work with your partner.
No, I got you.
Manage the
I
kid.
got you.
The oldest one, you take care of the other ones.
I got you.
Occupy, do not disturb.
That's right.
So carving out that time for yourself, because we
Right.
can give and give and give, and then we use ourselves up. So doing that. Paying attention to your bodily cues that you're stressed. Are you experiencing tension in your neck, your back? Getting on a regular exercise program, even if it's just walking. You know, people think you have to go to the gym and do all this strenuous stuff. Even if you just walk for 20 minutes, half an hour. Pay attention to what you eat. You know, we overeat. We're trained to overeat. That Clean Plate Club thing that we got, it just, now we have these huge problems with obesity and all the related illnesses that come from that. And we're talking about hypertension, diabetes, cancer, heart disease. All those things are caused by or exacerbated by stress. So you want to carve out time. You want to have time where you have some kind of stress management practice that you use. Different things for different people. Different things appeal to different people.
Great.
Massages are great. Actually help release some. You ever feel like you're drugged when you get off the massage table? That maneuvering of your muscles releases certain
and even
chemicals
if you
into
can't
your system.
afford to pay, you can get a partner to give you a massage.
That's right. They have little chairs at the mall you can sit in for a few minutes.
Yeah.
But also getting still, and you can take yourself other places just in your mind's eye. You can just sit and do deep breathing exercises. You can do imagery exercises. There's lots of material out there, self-help books, those sorts of things. And then I say, develop your social support system. They say social relationships are the best medicine. Sometimes people withdraw. They just can't deal with the pressures and the stress and the anxiety that interacting with people creates for them, and so they withdraw. They get held up in their house, and they just do the essential things that they have to do. And we find that those people do not fare so well in combating diseases.
Those that withdraw.
Those that withdraw and kind of churn inwards. So often you feel like you don't know where to go, you don't have any resources. That may be time when it's time to seek professional help, so someone can help work you through those issues and get you started with building your support system again, so that you have things in your environment.
And I agree with you. In fact, I think some of my dissertation research was around predictors of life satisfaction for women at midlife and older. And of all the variables we loaded, the strongest predictor of satisfaction for women was social connections. It outweighed children, and they were like, oh my gosh, it outweighed children, it outweighed the spouse relationship. It was all about connections, and I think they're kind of underrated.
Yes, and you mentioned gender issues, and I think that's a difference gender-wise. Women seek out support and talk to women more freely, I think, than men. You know, men have to be strong and not emotional and these sorts of things. And I'm not, that sounds like a generalization. That's certainly not all men, it's not all women. But we tend to vent and find somebody that we can talk to. Now, some people feel they don't really trust people with their business is going to be in the street. That's when a neutral outside person might be useful. Also, getting into support groups. You feel like you're the only one having these issues, and you're not. There are lots of people who have similar issues. You want to really do something before the chemical changes in your body create a chemical imbalance that leads you to have symptoms of depression and anxiety.
Talk about disease.
Okay, disease.
So, you know, doctors often say if you lose 10% of your body weight, or if you lose 10 pounds, just 10 pounds, you'll be able to reverse the signs of this disease, or whatever it happens to be, whether it's hypertension or diabetes, you lose that 10 pounds or 10%. Is it the same for stress? If you de-stress, does the disease symptom tend to lessen? Does it mitigate that?
Well, we think that there's definitely a connection there, and there's hundreds of years of research on the connection between stress and disease. So we know certainly that the chemicals that are secreted in excess when we're stressed create problems for just about every internal system that we have.
Are there always signs? Do you always know that you're under stress and you ignore it, or is it really a silent killer?
Well, the silent killer has to do with the fact that it's so related to these diseases that kill. And some people will recognize the physical symptom, but they won't connect it to a stressful situation in their life or a stressful event. So often people are just taught to kind of deal with it, just suck it up, deal with it, and then stress will express itself physically. You'll start having stomach problems, you'll have muscle problems, muscle tension, you might develop an ulcer, your blood pressure will be up, you won't know why, you might be having a healthy lifestyle, you think, but you're not aware of the things that are bombarding you or the things that you're stewing over that you're not really paying attention to. A lot of people push down things that are stressful or avoid things that are stressful.
And I think that's where disease comes in. I don't know.
That's not really working through things because you're kind of carrying it around with you. It's in there subliminally. You can't really have guilt-free time because this thing is hanging over your head in the back of your mind. So, you know, the stress, the physical changes that the stress hormones produce actually affect your insulin system, it affects your digestive system, it can affect your immune system. So these are the ways we break down, and then we're more susceptible to diseases. Now, there are life events that will happen, good or bad, that create stress, like death.
Things that are unavoidable.
Things that are unavoidable. How we, again, deal with it, how we think about it, how we process it, what we make it mean, what it means for us in our future and our ability to cope with it, that has a mediating effect on how it affects us physically.
So kind of thinking about the whole grief and loss, because that's one of your issues, if you think I need to get into the casket with this person as opposed to this is a natural part of life.
That's right. That's right.
Then you begin to put it in the right file.
That's right.
And deal with it.
A lot of people are very fearful of death, and they get preoccupied with fear of death and dying.
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to die. You don't know when, you don't know how. I mean, you can stew over that, you can be anxious about that, you can dwell on that, you can ruminate about that, and you're just creating ongoing stress for yourself, and the situation hasn't occurred. So, you know, you need to get on with other things in your life.
Clearly.
You know, some places talk about a celebration of life. We know that dying is a part of living. People are going to die.
Right. That's in different cultures.
In different cultures.
See it differently.
They do. So, you know, the problem is you have to go on, and so you figure out how you're going to go on. You may need help with working that through. There's a process, a grieving process. There's not a time limit on it. Some people say, well, you shouldn't be crying anymore, you know. Well, you might have a reaction at the anniversary of a death of somebody that you love.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. That happens.
Right.
Getting stuck is where it becomes a problem. If you get stuck in it and then you kind of get into a state of depression, that complicated grief reaction leads to depression. And depression can be, you know, people say, I'm depressed. Well, they're the everyday blues and blahs that we have.
Right.
And then there's the more chronic and more serious depression where we can't get out of bed. That's an extreme form. Or we have thoughts about ending our life because we just see no reason to go on. Hopeless, helpless. When you see yourself not eating too much, not sleeping too much, losing interest in things that you normally had interest in, withdrawing from life, having thoughts about harming yourself or ending your life, those are clear signs that your physiology is involved, you have a serious clinical depression, and you need to get help for that.
And those are the clients that's by the time they get to that point, that's typically the kind of thing you see. Actually, either depression.
Actually, I see people typically before that because other things have started going wrong before that.
Okay.
They're not happy with their life. You know, there are things that are happening around them that are creating anxiety that's keeping them from doing what they normally would do.
I see.
And so they're feeling some level of distress, or someone else is concerned and saying, I think you need to talk to someone, so they're coming because of someone else's concern. But most often it's because people are realizing that they're stressed, and they might look around and say, you know, look at my situation. Logically, I shouldn't have a problem. Why am I not happy? Or I feel bad about myself, and everybody else is telling me how wonderful I am, and there's a disconnect there between what's going on. I think something's wrong.
Good indicator.
So I tend to see people before they're at that severe point. And they're wanting to make some life changes. And the good news is we can change. We can develop a different attitude about our ability to influence the things that happen to us. People that kind of take life as life happens and there's nothing I can do about it, they don't fare as well as people who see things as challenges that they can move through, that they can get help with, that they can find resources to work through, and that there's a way out. It doesn't have to be this way. So recognizing the source of your stress. First of all, your body signals that you're stressed.
Because your body never lies. That's what I say. Now, I don't know if that's true.
I say trust your gut.
Trust your gut, okay.
But often we're disconnected. We don't pay attention. So pay attention to your bodily sensations. Often we have to learn to focus on what is happening right now. What am I feeling? What is contributing to that? When does this feeling come up for me? What situation is related to this? What can I do about the situation? What things can I not change? What can I not change, but what can I change? And then let me get to work on doing something. Who can help me with this?
Right.
And often we have difficulty asking people to help us.
Right.
We think somehow it's it's a moral issue,
Right,
it's a problem with our
right.
character. We're told be
I'm
self-sufficient.
not good enough. I can't figure it out. Why can't I figure it out?
That's right. We do all these things to torture ourselves.
Right.
I saw this a lot with college students. You
Right.
don't know, raise your hand. If you
Right.
don't raise your hand, you're not going to know. Who cares whether it sounds stupid? If you don't get the answer, you're not going to know.
That's right.
So
That's
we
right.
have this approach avoidance thing about what's going to happen if I do this, what's going to happen if you don't do this. So what
That's
does it
right.
cost you for taking action? What does it cost you not to take
That's
action?
right. I tell my kid, we had a PTA conference, and I said, you make this teacher teach you, and you don't leave until you understand what he's saying.
That's right.
And the teacher's like, well, I'm teaching him. And I'm like, yeah, but you make sure you get it before you leave. So
Your professors have office hours. Go
That's right,
visit them.
that's
Make
right.
yourself known. If you're in a class of 200 people, they don't know you from
That's
Adam.
right.
Go up and see that person.
That's
Ask your questions. If you're embarrassed to do it after class, make an appointment. So you have
Absolutely.
FaceTime with the professor.
Absolutely. So as we have about a minute left, any final thoughts about stress that you'd like to leave with our class?
I just want people to know that you can manage it. You can learn techniques to manage it. You can develop skills to cope with it. Don't let it take you out. You take charge of your life and start seeing yourself the way you want to be, having the things you want to have, doing the things you want to do. We lose track of our dreams and of visioning things, and we think seeing is believing. It's actually the opposite. Believing is seeing.
Believing is
so
seeing.
You create things in your mind about what you're capable of doing, and you make those things happen for yourself.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much. That is phenomenal. I like that. Great place to end. I would like to thank Dr. Deborah L. Davis for being my guest. If you would like more information about the topics we discussed, you may contact Dr. Davis at 301-345-2720 or email her at dldavis301@gmail.com. I'm Dr. Cislina Grosser Ledbetter. Thank you for watching.